Are video games nowadays spoiling the future gamer generation? I grew up in the Nintendo era. You know, NES, SNES, N64, that was my childhood. If you were an early gamer like myself, and you now see all of the crazy shit that's happening now, your appreciation for games is immense. Who knew these shitty little pixels could turn into something amazing? And realistic, too. Whenever I hear generations say that PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 were their childhood, it seems a bit weird to me, but like, I understand. Kids who will say that the PlayStation 3 and the 360 were their childhood, what the fuck? And even worse, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, that's their childhood? Holy crap, I can't even imagine that. People I know see my old Super Nintendo games and think, oh my fucking god, that's so old, how the fuck do you even play this shit? This is from the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 generation, so what the fuck are future kids gonna think? Will game advancements, like, create a lower appreciation for games since they don't know how it originated? I lived through the transitions, and fucking renting video games was the biggest shit ever, man. You had to do that if you wanted to have any money for your parents left over. Like, I shit you not, when Nagano Winter Olympics 64 came out, it was over $100 to buy just, like, brand new. If you had that nowadays, people would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, shit was expensive! And now, you wait for a while, and it goes down in price like a month after it's been released. It's amazing. Now, I can understand how it gets cheap. Video games have evolved, and they're not this niche nerd thing. They've become pretty mainstream now, and multiplayer is a huge thing, so you need more copies for more people to play, yada yada yada, you know how it goes. But people who still think it's a very niche nerd thing, some of them can be dicks. They're called gatekeepers, and they're the people who think they have authority on video games and judge you based on their opinion. Kind of like, say, oh, if you never played Resident Evil 2, then you're not a true Resident Evil fan. Well, it's like, well, you can be, but you just haven't played the other games, so, like, you can still be a fan. But to them, you have to be the utmost best fan ever, and like, maybe it's bitterness towards the newer gen or anything like that, but is it really necessary? Fuck no. Like, don't be a dick. I feel my age in the Super Nintendo, like, era, that was kind of my thing. And I get comments like, holy shit, that looks so ugly, how the fuck do you play this? And I defend it. But I'm not a dick about it. I just say, I grew up with this shit, so, like, it's like your teddy bear. You had it forever, you grew up with it, you kind of have a soft spot for it. To be fair, some classic shit was made back in the day. The argument seems a bit invalid because if you tell people go back and play it, no one will go back and play them because they didn't grow up with them, so they don't have the same connection. And they don't want to go back to, like, really crappy graphics. Like, we have to admit, the graphics were pretty shitty. But, you know, the evolution of gaming cannot be stopped. So it'll be inevitable that kids will have higher standards the more they, like, grow into this gaming whole thing. But is it kind of spoiling to give them top-notch graphics and everything? I mean, they are still missing out on good games that have been released before them, and origin games to new ones like Castlevania, and going into Castlevania Lords of Shadow. It's really different, and, like, it's the same thing, but, you know, yeah. It's just the newer game. But I mean, older games and older gamers, no jokes for themselves. Like, blowing on the cartridge, the Konami code when it was actually used for stuff and not just, like, a little joke. The ridiculous gameplay difficulty in, like, original Nintendo games. Like Contra. Holy fuck, man. If you didn't have the fucking Konami code, you were fucked. And the local multiplayer parties, like, you would have the cardboard taped to the fucking TV, so you wouldn't be able to, like, screen hack. Things have changed so much, and, like, you can't stop it. So are future gamers spoiled with all this shiny stuff that I never had, but grew into? I think they are a bit spoiled, but I'm okay with it. I have my own era of games that I enjoyed and understood, like a bunch of jokes that no one would get nowadays because it's too ridiculous. And they have their own ridiculousness, jokes, and everything too, and I probably won't understand it. So it's kind of like whatever you grew up with, you'll know better. Anyways, what's your opinion on this? Post it in the comments and I'll reply to it next video. Okay, now I'm gonna reply to the last video, which was about naming video game characters? Yeah, that's it. Ilrian Devil says that they hope that new technology comes out where voice actors can speak the names. We give the characters. And that would be fucking awesome. And I completely agree with that, even though it might be a bit weird and creepy. But oh well. Roger says that they usually stick with the default names and that they don't really want to influence the character too much. But they enjoy thinking of names for characters, having their own background, having everything, like, down to the T. And I really appreciate that. Like, I don't usually do that, but, in one game, Final Fantasy Tactics, there's randomly generated names, and usually I just keep them because, like, hey, let's shape why, Popo is fighting the war in the Lion War. Why not? I think it's a really good idea, having backgrounds for them. Girlsaurus says that you can name them funny names, and I've seen that one before, except you can name the horse My Dick. So it's like, oh, your dick is my dick is ready. It's like, So yeah, you can also make very funny jokes with certain names if you know how to use them properly, and it's great. Meteor Bahamut points out a really good thing where they change the script to just say, like, you, or like in Persona 3 and 4, it's like senpai and shit like that. And that's really, like, that's sneaky and creative, and I quite like that. They also mentioned that they go by the lore, so like canon names and all that you can eventually learn once they announce it or something. So that's pretty, yeah, that's standard. I sometimes do that if I really want it to be good. And I'm guilty of using my own name for Harvest Moon titles and just like shortening it, because in Harvest Moon you only have like, what, 4 characters to use, and I'm like, my name is longer than that, so it's kind of annoying that way, but it works. Piratic Wars points out that they name Barrett Mr. T, who I also named Mr. T because it's so obvious and it's so great and I love it. And yes, nowadays we have voice acting that pretty much directs the whole game and all the names. And yes, Mass Effect did avoid that by just changing the character's first name but only using the last name. I think it was just for keeping track of save files, honestly, but hey, it still adds just a bit of a personal touch to it. And old school games, Ultima games, you choose race, gender, class, a whole bunch of stuff, and it would change the experience. Yes, it was really cool. It's still cool because you can personalize it to what you want. It's just not just names, it's like the character itself. So like, yeah, Elder Scrolls, Fallout, they still do that. So the name isn't a huge big deal, but it's also the appearance and character customization, which is pretty cool. And yeah, that's probably like the new thing that's going to be happening instead of naming. And that's it. Thanks, like, seriously guys, thanks so much for watching these videos and commenting, and I will try and keep up with it this time and not vacation as much. So I will see you in the next video to answer all of your comments from this one.